Let's talk about the Fantastic Four. I'm in the process of moving right now, so no fancy lights, no neat backdrop, just boxes, the one poster I haven't taken down yet, and for good measure, my theater cup for the Fantastic Four. See, I did do some set decoration. 64 years ago, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby set out to do something that had never been done before. They wanted to create a comic book line that was new, fresh, but still somewhat familiar. And in the process, they ended up giving the world something that they had never seen before. The first superhero family. The journey to get the Fantastic Four onto the big screen has been a turbulent one, to say the least. 31 years ago, the first Fantastic Four movie went into production, and it was set to be released in 1994, but for whatever reason, it was scrapped. The movie was completed, visual effects were done, the cast was ready to promote the film. But it never officially saw the light of day. However, fortunately, bootleg copies have made it online, and although it is technically illegal to watch it, believe you me, it's worth it. The movie's not a masterpiece. It was made on a $1 million budget. It's a Roger Corman picture. It looks cheap. It is cheap. It's not high art. But it's the first truly earnest attempt to bring the Fantastic Four to the big screen. 20 years ago, the first big-budget version hit theaters, and at the time, it was a fun and flashy take on these classic characters, but with the power of hindsight, it's clear that this version was filled with flat, cookie-cutter stereotypes of their comic counterparts. The soul of the team was missing. They had the flash, they had the budget, they had the flair, but it just didn't quite feel like the Fantastic Four yet. Then came the sequel, which introduced a globe-spanning threat bringing the Silver Surfer to life, and it was a step in the right direction, but still fell fairly flat. And unfortunately, the box office also fell from the first to the second film, and we never got the third movie or the planned Silver Surfer spin-off. 10 years ago, a young visionary filmmaker was given the opportunity to bring the Fantastic Four to life, but it didn't work out so great that time either. He sought out to make a darker, grittier version. Gutsy, dirty, scary, totally different. But despite his creativity, it just wasn't true to these characters or their cosmic adventures. The film was also riddled with copious amounts of behind-the-scenes drama, including unwanted cast members, a director who went haywire, damaged property, was forced off the set, locked out of the editing bay, and not given final cut. To top it all off, one day before the movie was released, he went online and bashed the film, potentially costing it millions of dollars. Although even if it had earned double what it did at the box office, it still would have been considered a catastrophic failure. After the Fant Four Stick adaptation in 2015, it was pretty well decided that the only way the Fantastic Four were ever going to see the light of day properly is if they went back to Marvel. But at the time, they were owned by Fox, and Fox had absolutely no interest in sending them home. Fortunately, something much bigger was at play. Just a few years after this movie came out and Fox scrapped plans for a sequel and didn't really know what it was going to do, Disney ended up purchasing Fox, which meant that they just got the rights back to the Fantastic Four. 6 years ago, Kevin Feige went on stage and announced that a Fantastic Four movie was coming, but we were going to have to wait a while. Jump forward to 2025, we now have it. But why does this team matter so much to me? I did watch the animated series, both the 1990 adaptation and the early 2000s adaptation, but none of the big budget films ever really impressed me. Again, I do have nostalgia for those first two, and the masochist in me does enjoy the 2015 version, but none of them are true to the characters that I love. But why do I love them? The Fantastic Four are meant to be fun. They're smart, they're full of heart, and at their core, they are scientists and adventure seekers. Everything that I wanted to be when I was a kid. I gave you this brief history lesson because I do want you to understand just how long I have been waiting to see the Fantastic Four done right. They're four of my favorite characters ever created, with four pretty unique powers to them. It's long overdue for them to shine. Finally, the wait is over. Director Matt Shakman has delivered the best Fantastic Four film to date, and although that was not a difficult height to reach, believe me, he far exceeded the goal. And in doing so, he's reminded me not only why I love these characters, but also why I fell in love with the Marvel Cinematic Universe to begin with. It's no secret that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been struggling for the last number of years, and we've gotten some decent films. Deadpool and Wolverine was a lot of fun. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is, I think, one of the finest works in the comic book genre. And most recently, we got Thunderbolts, which again, I think is one of the finest works in the modern day comic book genre. How does the Fantastic Four compare? Well, it compares. This is a story full of heart and soul, beautifully realized characters, and a genuinely compelling threat in Galactus. The cast is also comprised of some of the finest actors working in Hollywood today. I know there's a lot of back and forth on whether or not Pedro Pascal was the right man for the job, but I assure you, he was. What Pascal manages to do with this role is he brings Reed to life in a way that we've never seen before. Not only is this the smartest man in the world, but he's burdened by his intelligence. This is not a man with an ego like Tony Stark. He walks into a room and knows he's the smartest person there, but he doesn't feel a sense of pride. He feels an overbearing weight on his shoulders that he may not be smart enough to fix every single problem. As much as he can do, he's also very aware of everything he can't do. Pascal balances this inner conflict with Reed Richards perfectly. Vanessa Kirby brings a warmth to Sue Storm that has never been realized on camera. Even in the charming 1994 adaptation, Sue has never been this good. Vanessa Kirby brings a level of talent to this role that baffles me every time I see it. She's bringing an Oscar-caliber performance to the role of a loving wife, sister, friend, and yes, a new mother. Her performance is layered with heart and quiet strength, and her voice draws you in when she speaks, and her words stay with you. Ebon Moss-Bachrach quite literally transforms into Ben Grimm. Through stellar CGI and raw performance, he brings us a version of Ben who's not angry, but gentle. He's a man who's made peace with his fate. He loves his life, he loves his family, he loves his neighborhood. While there is still some inner conflict in him, it does not consume him. He is proud to be who he is. And this is a version of the Thing that I never thought I would see, and somebody who is personally identified with that character through most of my life, it was really heartwarming to see. His real eyes shine through the stone, and they tell a powerful story. We even get a touching subplot with him building a potential romance with a local woman in his community, someone who shares his faith and his values for that community, something that I sincerely hope we get to see more of in a sequel. Given where the story's going for the next Avengers movie, I'm kind of worried that we're not going to get back to her, but I really hope we do. A romance story with Ben and this young woman could be a highlight of the entire cinematic universe. Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch at first seemed like the most obvious casting choice, but the more that I saw from him in the marketing, the more concerned I got. And I couldn't quite pinpoint why until I really listened to his voice and realized that it was hard for me to shake his Eddie Munson performance. But 5 minutes in, I was convinced he's the perfect Human Torch, through and through. And this Johnny is the most impressive version we've ever seen. He's not just a thrill seeker or comic relief. This Johnny is actually smart, a legitimate scientist. And the character arc is possibly the best in the entire film. His dynamic with the Silver Surfer creates some of the most memorable moments in the film, and he has, I think, one of my favorite moments in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe when it's just him and the Surfer having a conversation. Speaking of which, the Silver Surfer, Shalla-Bal. If you were unsure about a female Silver Surfer, rest assured that she was fantastic. Julia Garner simply works in this role. She showed up to do her job, and she did it exceptionally. Not only does she sell the role, but her casting elevated the movie overall. The relationship between her and Johnny is something that Norrin Radd, the male Silver Surfer, simply could not bring to this role. This is not an instance of casting a woman just for a marketing ploy. Casting a female Silver Surfer benefited the story overall, and the movie is simply better using Shalla-Bal than it would have been if they had used Norrin Radd. But the big threat in the movie is obviously Galactus, and what do I have to say about him? I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say any of it. I don't want to spoil anything, and quite frankly, Galactus is something that you need to see on the big screen for yourself. You need to hear him on the biggest speakers possible, and while I did not see this movie in IMAX because I don't have access to an IMAX theater anywhere near me, I would still highly recommend you see this in IMAX, because I've heard about the camera tricks that occur when Galactus shows up on screen, and it's something that I really wish I had an opportunity to see. The story of the Fantastic Four may be a somewhat familiar one, but that's not a weakness by any means. Because as always, it's not necessarily about the story you tell, but it's how you tell the story. It's all in execution. And in terms of execution, this movie is marvelous. It works. Everything in the movie simply works. This is one of the shorter films that Marvel has put out in a number of years, and it's a tight runtime, but it means that the story is focused. There's not a lot of fat on this one. Really, I don't think there's any fat. Every minute in this movie is dedicated to either building character or progressing the story. There's no unnecessary bloat, just pure distilled storytelling. It's one of the finest entries in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. This is a multiverse story, but unlike Doctor Strange or Spider-Man, the timing of this one feels impeccable. When the multiverse saga has often felt bloated and convoluted, Fantastic Four uses it with precision. This isn't a gimmick, and it's not riddled with fan service. It's not meant to expand the universe, but rather the multiverse element in this story is meant to shrink the story down so that we can focus so heavily on these characters more than anything else. This isn't about intensifying infinite possibilities. It's about laser pointing in on what matters for this particular story. Something that the MCU has not been able to do since Phase 1. It locks us into a self-contained story where every moment matters. This movie doesn't just get the characters right. It gets the heart of what the Fantastic Four have always been about right. It's about family, discovery, and hope. After literal decades of waiting, it finally feels like Marvel's first family is home. I loved this movie. I truly loved it, and I highly encourage all of you to go out and watch it as soon as possible, because if a movie like this is successful for Marvel, we're going to get more movies like this. And I don't just mean more Elseworld movies, I mean movies that are built around strong characters, emotional scenes, and dialogue that is genuinely compelling to listen to. Marvel's The Fantastic Four First Steps may not be the best thing Marvel has ever made, but it's in my top 10. And in a universe with nearly 40 films, that's pretty damn good. But now here's the fun part. I want to hear what you guys thought of the movie. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of Fantastic Four First Steps. Let me know if it's something that you want to see more of, or if you absolutely hated it. Free for all open discussion, but I want to hear everybody's takes. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.